I'm now going to ask Julie if she'd like to speak to us now.
Thank you, Jonathan. We're old colleagues from Canterbury, and I was just thinking before I came here in answer to the question of if we need another book on Monet, I was thinking, do we need another exhibition on Monet? Which can, I think, try to be answered by a roundabout way. And I started looking at the press clippings from 1985 on Auckland's exhibition, Claude Monet, Painter of Light. And I just wanted to read one or two to you. During the 6 weeks of the Monet exhibition, 175,796 visitors paid $5 a head to see the paintings. The gallery sold 30,500 catalogues, 34,000 greetings cards, 14,000 reproductions, and the show grossed over $1 million. Other ones, something to some competition. Monet exhibition billed as art event of the decade. My God, what an eye. Overwhelming response to Monet exhibition. Thousands queue for Monet. $87 million exhibition gets sponsor. It all sounds very familiar. But in the Christchurch press in 1985, we came across another one. Monet got away, but Christchurch may catch Picasso in 1988. I don't think we did, did we? No. But another one, actually, when I had a look from the Wellington papers, what did we find in 1985? It said, over 110 years after Monet painted the picture for which Impressionism is named, his work has at last reached Auckland. Then someday, Monet might even reach Wellington too. Well, thank you to the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, to the Art Gallery of New South Wales, and of course to the Chief Executive of Museum of New Zealand, Seddon Bennington, and to Jonathan Mane-Wheoki for bringing him here to us. It's a great delight to have these paintings here to come back to and see for a while as well. And I had one more little gift for Jonathan, and these are another set of clippings from a show in London in 1999. It was one of the biggest shows they'd had in London on Monet from the Museum of Fine Arts Boston. And we've got all the same kinds of headings. Money, money, money from the Daily Mail. The British press really went to town on this for the love of money. And the Times editorial was Monet Mania. One of the points it made was that beyond money-making, the prestige of hosting the Monet show is important too. And that, it argued, for London in terms of a European context. It also went into the difficulties, in fact, of always negotiating an exhibition, and particularly the trading of exhibitions. I'm not sure what Monets we have in New Zealand. I know of one, of course, the Dunedin painting. But pardon?
I think that's it.
Yes, that's what I thought it was. So I again think it's a matter of importance and some pride, really, and delight. We have, in fact, hosted it here. The other thing that the editorial said is that the most important thing about a Monet show is the opportunity it offers to admire some of the most evocative works by a master painter. So I just wanted to kind of start with that point. As for does Monet still matter? Well, to the public, evidently, yes, in terms of popularity. To the gallery and museum world, it would seem so too. To an art historian and teacher, which I am, an art historian and teacher in New Zealand, yes, of course, Monet has mattered, and Monet's mattered because of Impressionism as well being a key movement, isn't it, which looks forward to post-Impressionism, the development of modernism. And I think another thing, it's one of the most intensively worked ground or territory in art history. So another book on Monet is also another book on art history. And in that sense, to have Monet in New Zealand is also a contribution to art history and art in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So I would say that that's important too. All the kinds of books that when I began in Manchester in the 60s, and I encountered Monet there as a student, the subject matter of Monet was regarded, if not as insignificant, but really as secondary. I actually shifted over to look at Daumier, because Daumier rather interested me in terms of the context in the 60s. But certainly the whole formal qualities of colour, free handling and techniques were the way I was introduced to Manet and to Monet. It therefore came as an excitement, really, when I found that Monet started to be connected much more with the whole idea of modernity and modernisation. And it was then that when he was linked with the forces of modernity and placed in that context, it was one that I started to relate to at that time. And then we had such a lot of interesting, fascinating art historical writing that would actually look at his subjects and connect Monet with particular sites. For instance, Argenteuil, which was fascinating at that time in the 82. And there were so many exhibitions about that, looking at Monet. And then we had, of course, Monet at Versailles, Giverny, Normandy, London. I don't know if there's one in Norway.
There's a Norway.
Yes, I thought there's a
Mediterranean.
Yes. But that linking up of an artist with a site was something which I found particularly interesting. And of course it was interesting in terms of New Zealand art history, that ways of fact in which historians have looked at sites. And as a teacher and historian, I found that particularly interesting. Plus the work that was done as well on the myth of Monet, as you know, the Monet myth and the whole persona of Monet, and how he created an artistic persona, how his relation to the salon was looked at, and the formation of independent artists' exhibitions, his relation to dealers, how in fact he was, I believe, the most commercially successful of all of the Impressionist painters. And I found that particularly interesting, that here we had an artist who was arguably one of the most experimental artists of the Impressionists, but he was also one of the most commercially successful. In other words, how did he manage to be financially? He needed financial success in order to have follow his own artistic direction and remain an independent artist. So those are the kinds of things, reasons I found that he still matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much.